Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh. Today is the first installment of the Level Up series, Volume 1, Songbird vs. Flare, Benefits of a Canary Network, Songbird's Role in the Flare Ecosystem, and SGB Utility and Value Proposition. But before we get to all that, let's really discuss why Flare had their delay and when it was supposed to launch last July, right? Now, what was the reason for that? There were a lot of people speculating, conspiracy theories were out and about, but the actual factual reason was when they started building this, they did not expect to have as much attention on this and a community of this size, as well as being able to launching the types of technologies that they built into the network. So unlike many other layer 1 networks, which it's just a layer 1 network, smart contract, and it's the blockchain. And there's usually not a community there that's millions of users, an XRP community, or at least hundreds of thousands, receiving the airdrop between exchanges and non-custodial wallets. So this technology, when Flare launches, it needs to be ready to go, every component of it. And that was not really feasible last July. So we got a Canary network, which was added, and this takes off of Kusama and Polkadot. So Polkadot launched Kusama as a Canary network. But if you remember, Polkadot did their ICO like 2 years before even launching Kusama. So in the grand scheme of things, for the technologies that Flare's built, I still think has gone pretty fast. And now we get the full-blown, institutionally hard network, decentralized out the gate for the most part, within the first few days. Governance built into it. We'll have the fair distribution of the token, so there's no sales. It'll be distributed far and wide. And we have the establishment of a community. And we have these unique technologies there that allow data to be brought into the network. So it's very important, and I'm going to do separate videos, and I'm going to cover the different complex components here. But it's important to understand these two going into the Canary network: the State Connector system and the Flare Time Series Oracle. So if you've been participated in Songbird, if you got SGB and the airdrop, you could be delegating right now to the signal providers, and you earn a reward weekly. Why do you earn that reward? Because you're helping voting power. So you're delegating voting power that's detachable from your token. So Songbird and Spark are super tokens because they have detachable governance votes, and then they also have detachable FTSO votes. Now, F assets also have a detachable vote too, which is going to be brought over. So these are all super tokens. They're based on the ERC20 standard when they wrapped Songbird and Flare. So this Canary network launched last year, and there was definitely some uncertainty of when Flare was going to launch at first. But in the last, I would say, 6 months, we've got steady updates on the progress, what to expect, and everything has run flawlessly on Songbird, and everything is right on schedule. So before I get into SGB and Songbird's utility and value proposition, just know this: everything's built. So when it comes to July 4th launch, like Hugo says, and he'll say it in this video, the only thing that could hold that up potentially is possibly the last audit for the F asset system. Everything else been audited and is done. So we're not going to see any major delays or anything like this. This has nothing to do with the case, because Songbird has nothing to do with XRP, and Flare is not built on the XRP ledger. Flare is its own independent layer 1 network, and it has the State Connector system, which is outside of, it's built on top of the Flare network, but it could retrieve data from any blockchain, any open system, and this allows for things that were previously not capable. So by building this into the layer 1 and having a consensus model there and a backstop, you have 2 layers of attestation providers. This is something that Chainlink can't do, UMA can't do. If you know UMA oracles, they do something similar, but they can't replicate it because they don't have the full capabilities here, and also the time series oracle. So Songbird they've been testing this now for the past months. And we technically have 3 networks. We have Costin, which is the test net. That's where you just have faucet tokens that they're like poker chips. They're fake poker chips. They're just testing. There's no real world value. They're just for code and developers. Every network has one of those. We have the XRP Ledger test net, and they even have a dev net. Ethereum has one. But we have Songbird. Songbird's a real world test net with real world value. So it's always going to have advanced features before they get onto Flare. So the testing will always take place there. Any new upgrades, any new enhancements will always happen on Flare first. But the real important thing is the dApps. That's what drives utility. This is a network launch, not an airdrop, just. Because I see a lot of that, and it's like the airdrop's there, but if you're looking at it just as an airdrop, you're missing the whole big picture completely. So that's why it's important to understand this. And there will be a lot of people scrambling at the last minute. So this educational series hopefully will help you understand what Songbird's role is going to be. So let's get to that. Songbird is going to be attached literally at the hip. And there's a governance proposal coming up very shortly that Hugo will show in this video that will make it the lower house and Flare the upper house of governance. And I understand that in the XRP community, not too familiar with the idea of governance, but it's going to play a huge role in Flare. It's built into the code. A lot of the decisions that are made are built into the code. SGB, if you want new F assets launched on, say, Flare, well, you start stacking SGB. And that's not financial advice, but that's how you propose new F assets. If this governance proposal goes through, they'll be proposed on Songbird and you'll bond. So say the community, every quarter, there'll be like some competition. Hey, a group wants XDC. Another one wants Quant. Another one wants, say, let's just say Cardano, for example. That might be LAYERCAKE, but whoever bonds the most SGB, then they get the right to send that proposal to the Flare network. So think of that like the Senate, right? The House, then the Senate. And every F asset, if it's approved there, say we get FXDC, right? For example, every F asset, when you mint it, you get daily rewards in Spark. A portion or percentage of that reward will then go to those Songbird bonders on the Songbird network. They would actually earn Flare. So that makes it interesting how it's connected. There's also going to be a two-way bridge that's going to be built between them. And I think that's really important. Before I get into the videos here, because he doesn't talk about that, that means I almost look at it like a second native asset. So at first you could say, oh, you know, what's really been built on Songbird? And there hasn't been much yet. There hasn't been, because the full implementation of the state connector just happened like a couple weeks ago. And they just released the documentation and the attestation client. And now they're able to go through that. Audit's all done. And the next step is the F assets. So this is when you'll start to see the dApps launch. All we really have is Flare Finance, some NFTs, projects. And we didn't have the full capabilities of the network. There were no F assets. There was no state connector system. We had no relays going across to other networks too. There was no LAYERCAKE. There were so many things missing. But that was the core functionality of the new consensus model and the time series Oracle. We have 100 Oracle providers, and now we're going to scale it up right before launch to be able to scale up to 1,000. And those became the validators. So we have a decentralized validator system that's not controlled by VCs, not controlled by token holders. So we have like one of the best possible consensus models on top. And it's not dependent on Avalanche, and it's not Avalanche consensus either. It uses a component of Avalanche. It's federated Byzantine agreement with some components of weighting with the FTSOs, and also then like the sampling of Avalanche on top. I don't want to get into the technicals on that, but it's not dependent on anyone, and it is an advancement. It's the first Turing complete version of that. And it's also not dependent on Ethereum. So when you hear ERC20 standard, that's what Flare is going to use. That's a standard. Doesn't mean it's going to be an ERC20 token. It's not from the Ethereum network. All right, so let's get into the videos here. I just wanted to clear a couple of those things up. And if you felt like Songbird was going to be like some investment and then all of a sudden, oh, you lost your money on that, price went down, well, it was a canary network and the market went down. It should have been looked at as a canary network, not as an investment. And token price doesn't really determine success. At the same time, though, we don't want to overhype something that is more than it is, right? So the reality is they're just launching everything really now. But everything's been tested, hardened. I mean, this is the team that's behind Flare is very different than a developer team for dApps or, DeFi. These are engineers, PhD mathematicians, scientists that have built this 6 years in the making. They've been a research house, I believe. I think it's 5 or 6 years. So that's a long time to start on a project that was initially funded by Ripple. And then they, as a team, raised $11.3 million from Digital Currency Group, Kinetic Capital, Borderless, and another bunch of other big names. So they're well funded, and they didn't need to sell any tokens. So we have it pretty good on a setup of a network. And this is probably going to be the biggest airdrop in the history of crypto. And there's really some good news coming, but I'll leave that to the video for him to share. For those of you who claimed on an exchange, this is surprisingly good. So I think you'll be happy about that. But let's first dive into this. This clip is about 6-7 weeks old. It's from an interview with Hugo.
But one thing the Songbird Network will have, we hope, is we're going to put in a governance process over this, will be that we're going to have a sort of bicameral legislature. So Flare's token has a governance role, but Songbird's token will play a governance role in Flare. And although I don't want to cover the entire proposal in this call, one of the things we are thinking about with regards to the proposal is that the Songbird token can be bonded, so staked, in order to essentially raise governance questions on Flare. So, for instance, the build of a new bridge or the build of a new F asset, maybe to a smaller F asset, people can stake Songbird tokens, and they can essentially say, well, we've staked, there'll be a staking competition, perhaps quarterly, whereby people stake a certain amount of tokens. Whoever is the winner of that staking contest gets to essentially ask the question. And they can essentially reward those stakers. Every bridge or every F asset that is built on Flare earns from Flare's incentive pool. And so they can reward those stakers with some of those earnings from that incentive pool. Like I said, it was a governance proposal at the moment, so I'm not going to go through all of the details, but just trying to elucidate sort of the role of what Songbird hopefully will be in the future if the governance proposal is accepted.
So this is another thing to keep in mind. Once Flare launches here, governance is out of the hands of Hugo. So Hugo, the team, they can't do anything unilaterally without governance. They could submit proposals, and they're starting that process a little early. But this is something that I think is great for Songbird, because now SGB's utility has just been amplified because it's going to be continuously part of Flare. So as Flare's success grows, Songbird's going to be there, and it's going to be part of the governance. And I know governance sounds like something that, governance, it's like, it's not really used, but it actually is very important. And if you look at certain networks like Aave and the bigger ones like Curve, governance has a big role to play. And we have a nice even distribution of tokens. So you get one vote for one token. We have a liquid democracy, which means that you can delegate to a representative for each vote if you want, or you can vote yourself. If you don't feel comfortable on making that decision, you could delegate it to an expert. And this is these detachable votes that come with the Songbird and Flare natively. So it's a powerful thing, governance going forward, because it allows us to change the inflation. So we have an inflation rate that's going to be roughly around 5%, but the difference here with the inflation, and this is so important, is that it's going to those who are participating. It's not going to some entity who's then going on the secondary market and just is selling it at 5% every month. It's going to people who are delegating. It's there instead of staking rewards, instead of proof of work mining. So where do miners go every month? They get their mining rewards, they're paying an electricity bill, and they're dumping that Bitcoin, dumping that Ethereum consistently. So the 5% inflation is really not that much, and I think it's a good thing because those who participate, it transfers the value inside the network to those who do participate, and not somebody just trading on a secondary market, not somebody who's lazy and doesn't do anything with their asset and just leaves it there. Then they don't earn any. So it's risk-free to delegate. I mean, you're not even trusting signal provider, nobody. You don't give up custody of your token, and the rewards come directly to you and bypass the signal provider. So you could do it right from inside your Bifrost wallet. It's probably the easiest way to earn on a native token. Now, we don't have that with Bitcoin. You don't have that with Ethereum. You don't have that with XRP. Well, Ethereum now they have the staking, but that's a derivative. And we're also going to have this with all the F assets. They're going to have their own daily rewards. Now, that comes from a rewards pool. That's part of the total supply. But that won't hit inflation either. It will have a deflationary effect, actually, because every time an F asset is minted, collateral and Spark needs to be locked up at a more than a 1-to-1 value. It's 250%. If you self-mint, it's probably going to be a little more than 100%. We're still waiting on details on that. He touches on it in the roadmap video that we're going to listen to now. So this is the official roadmap from the community presentation. This was 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I'm going to be playing a lot of clips from there. They're going to release more educational content because I want to get it right from the source. So instead of speculating, instead of being, not looking into what's really going on and just looking at Twitter, can be very dangerous, very dangerous in both capacities, not just FUD, but hype too. So you want to make sure things are real. I've still been hearing Flare's built on the XRP ledger. No, it's not built on the XRP ledger. It has nothing to do with XRP. The only connection, technically, is the airdrop to holders, but it has nothing to do with XRP's value. There's no connection. There's no connection to the consensus. There's no connection to the token. There's no connection to Ripple. Nothing. Ripple didn't get any tokens, by the way, as well. So that's what's going towards the rewards pool, basically. Anything that was going to probably go to Ripple in that airdrop did not go to them. So let's move on here to the roadmap. This is the full roadmap. I might stop it and throw in a comment here because in the 3 weeks since this, there's been one big event that changes probably something he said in here. All right, so this is the official roadmap.
But one thing, the Songbird Network. So on to the roadmap. Just a little recap of the roadmap. First, I'll deal with Songbird. So obviously, as most of you know on this, we launched Songbird back in September. We've launched the FTSO. It has close to 100 data providers. Pleased to say that about 60 to 70% of the available tokens are delegated to those data providers. And recently we launched the State Connector. The State Connector now exists on Songbird, and it's been activated. Next, we'll be moving to activate the consensus mechanism, which puts the FTSOs in the driving seat of the network. Then we'll be releasing the State Connector client release. What this means is that the testers in the State Connector can now start working on that State Connector and start proving data onto the network.
This is where we are right now. So we've done State Connector activation. We've updated consensus activation. They just did State Connector client release this past week. So the next one up here is F Asset A launch. So that's what to look for. And the roadmap's right here. So we just steps. They keep following the steps one by one by one by one because everything's already built. It's just a matter of putting out documentation and doing the final testing. And they warned that there would be bugs in Songbird and potential. There has been nothing, not even a hiccup in Flare, in Songbird. Flare Finance has nothing to do with Flare, by the way. They have the same name, but that's a DeFi DApp. They have nothing to do with Flare, the blockchain. That's just a protocol built on there. So just so everyone knows there. I know that gets confusing, and I see a lot of comments on Twitter, people responding. They're just separate entities. They're building totally different, completely different things. One's just building DeFi dApps. One's building the infrastructure for the whole thing. So let's move on. But here's what to expect in the coming, I would say, weeks now. This was 2-3 weeks ago.
And then F assets have recently entered testing. And they're entering audit in the next couple of weeks. And we don't expect any issues with that audit. And we will look to launch that as soon as they're out of audit. So that will be the F asset A system. This is the system where 100% of the underlying is locked on the underlying network through the use of slashing if that agent moves any of the underlying. Then we aim to be launching.
So that's important right there for Songbird and for the SGB token. So the first stage of the F assets, you're going to need SGB to be able to mint FXRP, FAlgo, FBTC, FDoge, Litecoin, XLM. You're going to need Songbird, SGB. So, it's hard to predict how much of the community is really going to, participate right away. But there's definitely going to be a massive participation once everyone realizes what's going on here. Now, you don't earn rewards on Songbird, so you're probably not going to mint that much right away. There will be dApps that you might be able to use it with and test it, but this is still the testing phase. So you should look at this like this is not a, I'm going all out, I'm getting all my rewards, I'm doing this, and there's dApps to build. Not yet. This is just testing. So you just want to be able to mint the assets, be able to go through the process, and get used to it. It's like preseason. We're going through a walkthrough before the real thing. How often do you get to do that? Like never. So I think we should be very grateful that we have this ability to be able to test cross-chain interoperability solutions that pay you rewards for your XRP. There's nothing that gives you rewards for XRP out there. And those CeFi solutions are CeFi, exactly. And they're not going to be nearly as high as what you get here. And even Bitcoin. So this is F assets you're going to see adopted by CeFi and some exchanges. And will act as agents and then just offer their customers yield. And this is what I think their mechanism design, this rewards pool, is just brilliantly designed. Because it incentivizes bringing value on the network, which therefore locks up tokens. So it locks it up. So we're going to have Songbird locked up now, right? Now, I don't think there's going to be a tremendous amount on Songbird, this F asset A. And then there's F asset B launch, which he's going to explain is different. And it might sound confusing at first. They're going to put documentation out. They haven't released anything on the F assets yet. So there's not much to work with. We have some details. All right, so let's finish this roadmap off.
LAYERCAKE as soon as possible, the first batch of bridges. We think that will include Ethereum and Terra. And we're thinking about what other bridges to build and in what order. The Ethereum will be great, both bridging to Flare and between them.
Obviously, with the Terra thing, that's what I was saying. This was 3 weeks ago before the Terra meltdown. Unlikely Terra. So Ethereum and maybe Cardano, maybe Avalanche. I'm not sure, but LAYERCAKE's going to be on there testing too, and LAYERCAKE's a huge addition. This is with the delay for a year. Now they added the capabilities to be able to connect to 100 different blockchains with 101 smart contracts, and that's because the state connector So they're going to be able to connect networks very, very quickly. Well, maybe not, that quick, but much faster than you would expect. And LAYERCAKE assets will earn rewards if you bring them on Flare. I think, going by the presentation, they earn something, because he explained it in the crowdfunding model. So that actually, those rewards that you earn, you could actually, I'm going to do a video on this because I think it's a fascinating, this is the true programmability and refactoring of value like you've never seen before. So typically how you would earn rewards, you could actually not delegate them to somebody else to earn them, right? So they'll be earning your rewards on a daily basis while you are holding your F asset just in your wallet, or even if your asset's in a smart contract being, as collateral, it still earns the rewards. Now, for giving up that reward to that other contract or entity, you might get a DApp token from that project. It's a crowdfunding model, similar to what Cardano does. So this is a way to be able to fund projects without risking your principal XRP and without actually having to use your own value. And it's basically at no risk, in a way, of your principal. So this could be applied to auto repaying loans. It could be applied to so many different things. I think that is just the tip of the iceberg of what you could see here. And this is what it means by third generation blockchains. These assets are programmable. I mean, that's refactoring literally the asset. And then you have a governance vote separate. And it's in a contract to begin with. So you could have your asset here, your rewards going over there to somebody else, your governance votes going here. It's really fascinating. And if you throw NFTs in the mix, it's going to be wild what's coming out there. So, I mean, money is truly changing. And, XRP is great, and Bitcoin for what they're doing. And, well, XRP especially for its use case. But these new assets, you have to understand they're different. So instead of just looking at, the inflation rate is 5%, this is going to hit the market and do this. That's irrelevant if you don't know what's going on. All right, so let's finish this off.
And then after that, on Songbird, we'll be launching the F asset B system, which allows the agent to have a variable amount of the underlying in their address on the underlying network. And then, as I mentioned, we want to upgrade the FTSO to be able to have thousands of price series and thousands of data providers. So that's the roadmap for Songbird. And really importantly, as I've mentioned before, I believe in our blog, we are working on a governance proposal such that the Flare governance system becomes bicameral, meaning that Songbird is the lower house to Flare's upper house. If you think about the House and the Senate in the US, in order for there to be a governance proposal, we think that the governance proposal that we're putting in to make this happen is the idea that you'll have to bond or stake Songbird against the governance proposal in return for potentially some bounty in order to incentivize people to stake their Songbird. Return for some bounty for the winning proposal. So once it's won on Songbird, it then goes to Flare for a vote to ratify it. And if that becomes successful, then the people who staked on Songbird can potentially get some bounty.
It's going to be interesting how that governance proposal comes out. So there's going to be, I think, multiple things in there. And there'll probably be some slight changes. Like the network hasn't gone live yet. And as the creators of the network, they're even putting this out, which is nice, I think. And it's giving us to get our feet wet with governance. I hope that just getting our feet wet with governance in a proposal like this, because the creators usually don't do that. Usually they'll launch, the network will be centralized for 6 to 12 months, and they got to get the bugs figured out. They got to get developers. They got to build a community. You got to got use cases and where you're going to fit in the market. I mean, Flare's already miles ahead of all those other things. So when it launches, it's going to be a big difference from like what Songbird happened here. But at the same time, in the market conditions we are currently as of May 24th, this is the best time to kind of launch, because now this is the building phase. This is when everyone builds. The last thing we'd want is there to be a big hype bull run. Songbird Spark runs up, and then its value higher than it really should be, and then comes down. That's what we really don't want. We want to see the developers. We want to see total value locked on the network, and we want to see cross-chain dApps and interoperability with more assets coming onto Flare. And there's going to be Web 2 interoperability too here. And that's just a whole nother topic. I mean, the state connector is so powerful of a system that it enables to prove any state on any open system in a secure and decentralized manner. So dApps, this should incentivize developers to come over. Flare's going to give some grants. They say they have some in the pipeline. But I wouldn't expect Flare to be, the whole industry to be, knowing about Flare right away. It will take time. The ETH merge is coming. That's, in the fall. And as much as ETHgate and everyone, talks about that, the Ethereum virtual machine is kind of the standard right now for smart contracts. It uses the same account system, same types of, you could use MetaMask with it. So it's the same developers that could come over and port different projects. So that's good for Flare, because now we could see that happen. And ultimately, they could actually add a second virtual machine with a second Flare network and a second state connector system with the same Flare token. That gets really interesting. And Hugo's brought that up twice, but he says they're not working on it. But that's further out. It would be like a constellation of Flare networks, he said. But that's a way to scale beyond sharding, beyond side chains, beyond layer 2. That's why it's called Flare networks. But everything will be tested on Songbird first. Everything. The most high-tech stuff, the relays are going to be tested there. LAYERCAKE is going to be tested there. So there's going to be a continuous activity on Songbird. And some things might take 6 months of testing. And you'll see the developers do the same things. Their dApps will be advanced on Songbird first. Is it possible that they skip Songbird and go right to Flare? Yep, that's possible. There's no requirement. This is an open network. Anyone can build on it. Anyone can use it. There's nobody in control of the network. And, coming from a regulatory point of view, they had to do all this to be able to launch a network decentralized pretty much out the gate. To get those signal providers, Songbird was there, right? 100 of them built up. Now they're all ready. They're going to be testers too. We're going to have agents. We're going to have bandwidth providers. We're going to have node operators. And then we're going to have users of the network. And then the dApps. So there's just a lot of roles to play in the network. And to wrap your head around all that is a lot when you first look at Flare. And I think that's, sometimes now with even the additions of the governance proposal. So my understanding is, before I play the last video, is the governance proposal is going to allow for a way for you to, if you claimed on an exchange, that you receive the initial 15% there. But I believe, this is kind of speculation, but this is what he said is going to be in there, that you'll be able to switch that to either however they do it, through the foundation, through the treasury, through some other non-custodial way to get the distribution into your self-custody wallet or off the exchange. So you won't have to trust them for 3 years, because it's going to be a 3-year, 36-month distribution, which is 2.37%, I think, every month is what I saw on GitLab last time I checked. But that's like, they're doing it right now, the audit. You could see it on GitLab if you wanted to look. So it also looked to me, and I was speculating a little, I don't even want to say that, with the way that the inflation is going to work with the circulating supply and total supply. We'll see. But there's going to be some changes, no doubt. And we'll make a decision. So community needs to mobilize when these governance votes come out. And instead of just going on Twitter and saying, hey, can we have this as an F asset? This is an F asset. Now we're in the driver's seat and we have the keys to the kingdom. This is a layer 1 network you're getting a free airdrop on. It's like, think about getting, XRP airdropped on you, or Cardano airdropped on you, or Polkadot airdropped on you, Avalanche. Like, this is that level of network that's going to be up there. As long as this technology is successful and we get developers and dApps to build on it, everything's built. Can there be hiccups in a way that we're in a bear market and development is slow and price is slow? Yes, that's absolutely possible. But that's not determining success. Success is determining, is the network functioning the way it's designed to be, and is it positioned based on its model that it's capable of offering new dApps that you can't do right now in many networks. You could connect to Web 2. So that allows for prediction markets. So any type of derivatives. If you've seen Susan Athey's video with Codius back in the day, well, if the temperature is this temperature and it's that time of the day and this happens, you get paid out. That could all happen on Flare. It's built into it. You don't even need governance proposals to add any of those things. So the Flare Time Series Oracle isn't something I've talked about yet, but there is a difference. And I'm just going to clarify this. I know it's been a long video, but the first video I wanted to get the information out there, and I've covered all areas for the most part a little bit. The difference between the FTSO and the State Connector is they're both Oracle systems, but the State Connector answers objectively. Yes or no. Did this happen on that network? So there'll be a request. Did this transaction go through at that block at that time? Yes or no? And the State Connector is able to attest to it, and the attesters grab the data from there. Then they come back and vote, and they run their own consensus in the State Connector system. And as long as 51% agree, it goes on as proven. And even if they 51% agreed and they were wrong, that's where the sun comes in. That the emoji is the branching protocol. There's the local attesters on the Flare network. Any node could run that could branch if they see that that's the wrong data for whatever reason. That's the backstop. So you don't need to use value to do this. And it just branches in and always find the accurate truth. Now, the time series Oracle is different. You're getting a bunch of different price feeds, right? There's trading of XRP to USD in hundreds of places. So there's no set price. So it needs to pull basically a bunch of them, and then it truncates them and throws them to a time series. And there's vote power mixed in with the actual accuracy. So that's why you see some signal providers have more vote power. They're voting for their own price feeds. And it's a game of almost like prediction in a way. That's where we're heading. Machine learning, AI, all this is going to go more autonomous. And the more data you could have, because Flare is a data provisioning network. It could connect to any Web 2, connect to the Bloomberg price feed if it wants to. Anything could be included in an application. That opens up a ton of possibilities. It's not just DeFi anymore and just NFTs and metaverse. We go to the next level on applications. And that's where all the fun is. I mean, the networks are great and the technology, to understand it, but all the cool stuff gets built in the applications usually. But with that said, the rewards at the network level on Flare are definitely amazing. The way they're designed. You have the inner economy, which is the FTSO, and that's transferring value into those who participate. And then the outer economy, and this is important, the agents. So if you self-mint and you put your SGB up and then you mint FXRP, once both phases are intact, you will earn actually a percentage of the XRP that people do in phase 2, where they borrow the collateral and the agent does it all for them, but they pay a fee. So that fee will go a percentage of it to those who self-minted and put their own collateral up there. That's interesting because where can you earn XRP and BTC? So there's going to be it's not a binary decision, I think. once both phases are out there with the F assets, and we'll talk about that more. But that's the other way to earn. So you create this flywheel yourself, because as you're earning more Songbird, more Spark, you could then, if you have XRP, you could just mint more XRP, and you're going to make XRP, and you take that and you mint the XRP. I mean, create this cycle and this feedback loop, as well as earn the delegation rewards while your assets sitting there in collateral. So it's definitely fascinating, the types of strategies that we come up with. That's what we talk a lot about in the Patreon group, and setting up really more at a higher level of how to be able to read the market here and then go deeper into DeFi. So our only experience really is with Flare Finance at the moment. All right. And that is what it is. There's still chugging along. Uniswap is the DEX protocol they forked, and they're not doing the loans. So we always need a DEX. So I have an open mind with Flare Finance. It's just a protocol, right? So we'll see how it goes. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't put money in there. That's you just wait and see. But that's a protocol. That's a dApp. Who knows? They might turn out to be the best DEX on Flare. We'll see. I think everyone, deserves a chance when it comes to the real network. That was the kind of the test network. And we're going to see a whole bunch of different dApps going forward. All right, here's our final clip of this. This was a long video today.
So, on to the roadmap.
Oh,
Just really the long-term sort of utility for Songbird is we've positioning it, we think of it as this long-term network where governance-led changes that are voted on by token holders on Flare are implemented first, so that it gets all of the new technology that Flare Foundation and anyone else basically proposes and accepts, and so gets that 6 months to a year in advance, or however long. Having said that, it will have a disparate group of token holders over the long term, and things like the State Connector present a myriad of potential opportunities that people could build applications for. So to give you an example, on Flare, we use the State Connector, principally, we use it, anyone else.
I just wanted to go that one more time there, because the F asset system, that's what they're building. That's the Flare team's basically application. Now that's going to be a Spark dependent application. So Spark holders are going to be the ones who govern that application. And that kind of takes them out of the responsibility. It's not going to have like a native token or anything, but it's kind of built into the network where it uses the FTSO, it uses the State Connector system, and it uses the Spark token as collateral. So, I mean, it's at the core of everything. Then they're also building LAYERCAKE. I mean, I guess that's an application too. I think it'll underpin more applications. And to leave off here, Flare is basically crushing Vitalik Buterin's public statement that he made 3 months ago. And multi-chain versus cross-chain is confusing because it's used in different terms. But right now we have multi-chain bridges mostly, where it's like a multi-sig, and it's not truly trustless. And there's hacks. We've seen Wormhole. We've seen, Ronin. And it doesn't support true cross-chain dApps. Like, you have the application, like, for example, like Aave is on 5 different networks, but they have to build a separate interface for each network. With Flare, they're going to be able to build one interface, be able to connect to whatever networks that LAYERCAKE connected to, and natively be able to use those assets and connect to them. So you could borrow on one network and lend on that one within the same interface. And this is like the evolution of where we're going. Now, what's multi-chain? Multi-chain is what Polkadot does, right? There's a bunch of different smaller chains, parachains around one network. Cosmos is kind of a blockchain of blockchains. And then ETH 2.0 is going to be kind of like Polkadot, where there'll be 64 shards around it. So, and then Avalanche with their subnets. Those are multi-chains. What Vitalik was saying was that there's no way somebody's going to build something, be able to have it as secure as multi-chain, because with multi-chain, everyone's using the same standard, right? They're all on the same, technically, ETH network. Polkadot has their messaging, and Cosmos even created IBC. So he's like, oh, it's going to be multi-chain. And of course, there's a bias there because they want Ethereum at the center. And if you have to choose which blockchain of blockchains you're going to go on, they want to be the chosen one. But now when you throw Crush Chain in the mix, it's like, now you flip that all on its head. I mean, I think those networks will still do great, all of them, even ETH 2.0. But this definitely, I think, takes away that kingdom power that, say, an Ethereum 2 could have gotten if they probably would have got done earlier. But that's, I think, out the window now. And it was surprising to see Vitalik say that, because you never bet against innovation. And it's because of the modular design of what they're building. It's not because their blockchain is better and their, consensus even is better. Though the consensus is revolutionary, but it's the addition of the state connector and the Flare Time Series Oracle and this ability to not use the native asset as value and proof of stake. So it's going to be interesting to see the reaction from, the rest of like ETH communities and all those, because it is ETH based. So it's not an ETH fork though. It has aspects of XRP Ledger, but cross-chain dApps open up a whole new world. That allows you then to hold multiple assets in your wallet, and the dApp could connect to Web 2. It could pull data from the internet, and Web 2 is enormous. The blockchains can't do that right now. You can't pull data on Ethereum just on an application unless you connect to Chainlink. Then you got to integrate, and even that, then you got their model is basically the difference is it's similar to what the relays are doing with Flare. So Flare is going to relay to Solana a bunch of price feeds from the FTSO that they're going to use in their dApps. That's on the roadmap. Like that's one of their 3 products. It wasn't listed yet. But that's kind of what Chainlink does. So, but that's not their whole system. The FTSO rewards good behavior, and instead of slashing bad behavior. But that's built into the network itself. This relay is like a model because there will be fees paid, and LayerCake burns fees. So, with this inflation coming down to 5% now, and it might only be of certain supply amount. I'm not sure. We'll see in the governance proposal. I don't see inflation being a problem at all. I think it's perfectly set up because you want the rewards there. You want to incentivize behavior. Deflationary is not always the best thing if you're trying to build up demand. You need people to build on it. And providing accurate price data is solving the Oracle problem. And that's what I'm going to leave off with. This is the Oracle problem. All right. So hope that helped everyone get an idea of what Songbird's potential future is here and the utility and where we're going with the Flare launch, because SGB is going to be right in the mix. And S assets, I'm not going to make any price predictions. I don't know. It's not financial advice in any way, but it's absolutely going to be relevant. That's for sure. It's not going to wither away. It's not going to disappear, and it's absolutely not been a failure. It's been flawless. I mean, we have 45,000 Bifrost wallets launched in the first week. That's more than any wallet ever did. So I think sometimes we have to keep in mind of how big our community is. Even if you get a couple, trolls on Twitter and, people that don't understand or got frustrated. Hey, I get it. That was a tough time in the fall when the market was up and it went down and it came out high. But it was Canary Network. So understanding that going in. And now we have this situation here, which is a brand new network. Price is not the determination of the success of a network, especially in the beginning, especially. And also this is a network launch, not just an airdrop, because you're going to hear that within the community. But from outside the community, this is a launch of a network. And that's really how we should perceive it, as a launch of a network. All right. This is not financial advice. I'm Mickey B. Fresh, and I'm out.